Greetings, fellow stone punchers. My name is Zach Hack. I am not a famous YouTuber or Minecrafter in any right. In fact, this is probably the only video I ever will be publishing on the topic. You probably landed here by doing a Google search that I did a few days ago.
Both of these blocks, including these because the comparator can be hooked up to either the energy injector or the stabilizer, have support for both Open Computers and Computercraft, so you could build a Computercraft or Open Computers Lua program to control this reactor. And with that, obviously, you could get a bit more precise control than a simple analog repeater setup.
And so now you're looking through the mods that are included in Stoneblock 2, and you're thinking, I don't see Computercraft or Open Computers. Now, one of the things I'm really proud of, I'll take you over to see here real quick, is a big reactor made out of big reactors. So I kind of envision that each of these turbines is like a fuel rod in a regular reactor. And yeah, that's a tier 7 Draconic Madness battery. That, it's our goal to fill it up. We're getting 2.5 million RF per tick, which is dumb. So at this point, you say to yourself, all right, it's time to build a Draconic reactor. I need more RF, clearly. So I'm going to go take a look at one, and, it looks amazing. This is super cool, right? Okay, so there's a problem, right? So there's a reason that this is far away from my base, using dislocators to get here, and thousands of blocks away from anything that I care about, including, by the way, this control room, which I care about a lot. So let's get into it, because you don't want to end up like this guy. Balls. I set up a reactor control area using RFTools and the programmer. This is how it works. And I'm going to show you all about it here in the course of this video. So this is the first program that we're running, and this is what I call the Reactor program. And so the Reactor program, I'm going to steal it out of here, and we're going to go over to the programmer and load that up. I actually recorded editing this program earlier today so that you could kind of see what it is to make something in an opcode-driven programming language, or a visual sort of programming language, to make this happen. It's probably the most boring video on YouTube ever, but if you want to get more in-depth about all this stuff, I am not going to explain every detail of this. I'm just going to kind of go over the high level, but if you want to watch some trial and error without doing the trial and error time yourself, I'll include a link to that video as well. So for those of you who are just here on how to make the reactor work, there are a few outputs from the reactor. So the reactor outputs, for example, the shield level, and it outputs the temperature. Now, I'm also in this program, I'm reading the saturation. I'm not doing anything with this yet, but I am reading the saturation. So eventually I can. So the way that we start here is with these nodes, and these are connected to remote redstone transmitters. All right, so all of these are transmitting some detail from the reactor. So temperature 11 is kind of what I've determined to be the sweet spot. That's where you're going to get your maximum efficiency out of the reactor. So let's go back and take a look at it real quick. So when setting up the reactor itself, this is the energy injector. So this controls the shielding, the containment unit. And that requires RF in. So you're going to have to push RF into this. Now, you can't just use infinite RF. This reactor will absolutely consume an infinite amount of RF for this, so you don't want to let it. So what I've got here is a flux gate, and the whole key to this setup is these flux gates. So there are a lot of reports that say you can run this at 130,000. As a guy that's blown one up already, I'm a little more cautious, so I run mine at 140,000. and this is, roughly 10x that. So the idea here is that if I send a signal here, it's going to inject a massive amount of energy into the shielding of the reactor. Now, each of these outputs, each of these stabilizers has a different output. So this one, for example, if I look at the redstone mode, is outputting the temperature, and this is by far the most important attribute. So if your temperature gets much above 8,000 in here, things are going to get ugly quickly, and you can reach a point where if this is too high and the shielding is too low, this goes kaboom, and that's the part we're trying to avoid, right? So the most important thing is the temperature. The second most is the shielding. I don't know if this one's the shielding. Redstone mode is the shield, yep. And this one I think is saturation. Yep, and the other one is conversion, which I'm not using at all. So the conversion is that fourth bar here, and so the more of the fuel you convert. Now, this is why you do this exercise. So when I first set up a reactor, my kids play on this server, as you can tell. I logged in the next day, and a bunch of the fuel was converted, and I noticed that the night before when I logged out, the generation rate was around 500,000 RF per tick. Now this generation rate, however much power you're pulling out of this, heats up the core. So you can look at it as Awakened Draconium wants to create energy, and the more opportunity you give it to create that energy, to fill that void back up in energy, the more it's going to take it, and it's going to create this energy. Well, that also heats up the core. So these two things have a direct relationship. I mean, it's not one-to-one, but it seems to be fairly linear to me. The more energy you're pulling out of it at once, the hotter the core. Well, the next day, I was pulling out a solid 500,000 RF per tick, and the next day I come in and my temperature is down here, and my energy saturation is up in the green, and my efficiency is all been out of shape, and I'm like, well, what the heck is going on here? So what happens is, as you convert the fuel, the reactor becomes more efficient. So it does a better job creating more energy. So the reason that we want a controller and not to have to, obviously you can stand here and keep adjusting the settings yourself, but the reason that I wanted automatic control was so that I can operate this near the peak efficiency for as long as possible without it going kaboom. An earth-shattering kaboom, as Marvin Martian used to say. So, all of this said, this is how the reactor works. The first thing you want to do is be sure that your reactor is nowhere close to your base. I already did that because I already knew how hazardous it could be, so I didn't blow up my base. That was great. But I did blow up a giant section of the world. So you don't want to do that. Don't be that guy. The next thing is that this is the feedback in. So I have one set of feedback here on the shield generation, right? And I have another set of feedback that tells me how much energy am I pulling out of it. So as this bar gets closer to the bottom and this bar gets closer to the top, I want to have very fine-grained control. I want to say, okay, if I'm about this temperature, things are pretty stable. I don't want to mess with it. So you can see this is even trailing back a tiny bit, very, very slowly. So as it stabilizes, we're gonna get more energy saturation, and we're gonna get less temperature, and it's gonna get a tiny bit less efficient than it could be. So that's the reason. Concept-wise, I needed a way to set these flow gates, right? These flux gates, in such a way that the extraction of energy from the reactor was finely grained in control. And not having Computercraft or knowing what Computercraft can do to this flux gate, I knew that I had 15 levels of capability here. So I'm looking at this redstone power, you're seeing 9. And that's putting into here, oh, well, gee, my output flow is 9,000 RF per tick. I'm going from 0 to 15,000, which means that for every redstone step, I'm about putting 1,000 RF per tick. That's pretty cool. What happens when I need 16,000? All right. Well, for those of you that know hexadecimal, you're probably going to guess where this is going. I have another stat of 15. Neat, huh? So this one is the 16s place. So in hexadecimal, the first one is the ones place, just like regular decimal, but in hex, instead of the tens place, you have the 16s place. So this is multiples of 16 up to 15 times 16, which is 240,000. Well, what happens if I get more than 256,000? Ah, indeed, we have a third digit. So this is the 256th place. And those 256s are times 2 here, so you see that we have a nice 512K out. So using this method, I have very granular control of how much energy is coming out of the reactor, down to 1,000 RF increments. And using a single flux gate wouldn't give me that kind of control. I could set broad controls for maybe 20,000 RF per tick, but then what happens if my efficiency gets too high, and so on. So I really wanted very granular level control of this whole process. And so this gives it to me. Now, that's all the inputs and outputs there, far away from this control room, which is far away from the base, because, as you've already seen, I blew it up. So here you can just see there's been no change, no change, no change. Every time this program runs, it's saying, okay, here the temperature was 10, which roughly translates to, so now, oh, it's 10 again. So we're going to get another increase here. Let's see, let's wait. Oh, we're not going to get it because I took that over and put it here, didn't I? That's funny. Whoops. All right. So I'm going to put this back in here. And let's just run it now. All right. So we're going to get an increase in the flow rate out. So as these tick by, it's probably going to tick up a few times because this has not been in there for very long, or has been out of this for a while. So it's going to probably make a few adjustments upward. And that's fine. So I determined that 11 was about the sweet spot. It is less than 8,000 degrees, and before the reactor goes critical. I may play with pushing this to 12, but given how gun-shy you can probably already tell that I am, this was a lot of work to set all this up, so I'm not real anxious to have it go kaboom. So I think 11 is probably efficient enough for me. Anyway, so back to the program, now that I have it back in that processor. Oh, actually, another note is, yes, I am remote from the reactor itself. So all of these Redstone receivers, these are all RFTools, Redstone receivers. They work, at great distance. And yeah, see, so perfect. So now we've increased this for a little bit, and now we have no change. We're back into that sweet spot. Let's go take a look. I can't resist taking a look. All right. I don't remember what the number was earlier, but it wasn't 164. So you can see that now we're getting some more. The temperature is rising again a little bit. There's a little bit of inertia on the rising, which is why I'm afraid to dabble with level 12, because I'm afraid it'll just run away if I get too close to it. All right, cool. So let's go back here. All right, now I'm going to mess with it a little bit. So this button runs this program. All of my processors, I have buttons. I didn't start this way, but it turned out to be super useful. So these processors allow me to do stuff and test that it's running. So when I evaluate the state of the reactor, and this whole part of the room is for evaluating that. So I'm getting my 4 signals from the reactor: my saturation, my temperature, my containment, even the conversion, even though I'm not doing anything with saturation conversion yet. Maybe in the future there'll be something that I want to do with those. on my quest for greater efficiency. So the point that this program does is it evaluates what's going on in the reactor. Can we push it a little bit more? And if we can push it a little bit more, we do a thing. And if we can't push it more, if we need to go backwards, then we can do that too. And if we need to go backwards a lot, we can do that too. So there's two things that we could do to go backwards a lot. This one, this is urgent decrease. So this basically says, oh, the reactor is about to go critical. Let's push this button. Not yet. And I'm going to back it off about 64,000. So instead of backing it off just 1,000, I'm going to back it off 64. I'm going to do that. I also, in that situation, do this, which is a shield pulse. Now, what's happening in the reactor room is a ton of energy is going into the shield. So now you can see we pumped up our shield to 11 for a second. That containment got cranked way the heck up, and it's now sliding back down. Let's go see. All right. Yeah, it's like blue, right? Containment is huge, and this went way the heck up. Yeah, it doesn't take very long to come back down. And you already saw that I have so much RF stored, I don't really care about wasting the energy on it just to prove a point. Visually, as the shield burns down, that blue containment field around this is going to get wispier and wispier. So you want it to have that kind of very thin, wispy appearance without really disappearing. When it disappears, bad things. Okay. So this circuit is a logic gate. Okay, so I'm going to keep whatever's happening if nothing's going on. And I'm going to set this to on if I get a signal from A, and otherwise off. So what this does is it flips this this redstone, which is going into this timer. And so 90 ticks is how long I do the shield pulse for. So you can see my shield is already back down to 3. This is what happens in 90 ticks at that injection level. All right, you ready? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Right, so that shield cranks when it gets energy levels like that. Even for a very short amount of time, you can really help to stabilize the reactor. So that's a big piece of what needs to happen. There's another safety valve that I have in the reactor room as well that stops energy extraction, but it's not quite as stabilizing as this is quite as quickly. All right, so here we're basically saying, okay, if this is blank, go with on, and otherwise turn it off. So these two logic gates are essentially just flipping the circuit back and forth so that I can turn this timer off, so that when there's no signal, the timer can run and give me those 90 ticks. And then this just transmits it to the other room. So all of this is for the shield injector at the base of the room. Now let's go look at the program. All right. I know I said a lot of stuff. This is kind of complicated. I'm kind of surprised it's taking me this long to talk about all of this. So the first thing is we're going to set this off. You saw that I can set it off by button or by timer. We're going to get a random number. We're going to put that into a variable. We're going to say that our variable is going to get converted into a string. So you can see here at the end, this little tilde r, that's what this is. This is a random number so that I can tell that even if things aren't changing, so it says no change T11 S3. I got really tired of seeing no change T11 S3, no change T11 S3, scrolling off the board endlessly and not being able to tell, well, is it actually doing anything? Is it running? What gives? Okay, so that's the first mechanism. And all of this stuff is basically to generate a log message. So these opcodes create a log message based on what it's doing. So increase and then that variable, no change and then the variable. So we have 4 possible outcomes. The first being we're going to increase the energy output a little bit. This being we're going to decrease the energy output a little bit. And this being we're going to decrease the energy output a lot, and also we're going to pulse the shields. And here in the middle, if we're in our sweet spot, we're going to do no change. Now, these are the tests that give us these branches. So the first test is the temperature bigger than 11? So if the temperature is 12 or more, your reactor is in danger of going critical. And again, maybe 12 is stable, maybe it's not. I'm not really anxious to find out as I record this, maybe some other day. So let's assume that 12 is about to go critical. This says, okay, well, I'm about to go critical. What are my shields like? So are the shields good or no? So if 2 is greater than your shield value, meaning your shield value is 1 or 0, then we are going to do urgent decrease. And we are going to immediately pulse the shields and throw some energy into that. This is going to wait for 10 ticks and then turn the shield pulse back down, by the way, just because it burns a ton of energy. I was kind of worried that this might have a feedback loop of a sort where I could use the shield to run in a near critical fashion, and I didn't want to do that. So rather than having that happen, I actually just turned that back down. I didn't want to keep pulsing energy into the shields. Here it says, okay, so we know that the temperature is hot, but we're going to say that the shields are not critical. Let's just back it off a tiny bit more. So this just backs it off one little bit. So if the temperature is not critical, then we know that we're going to either increase or stay the same. And so this basically says, again, if I'm greater than 11, if 11 is greater than this, meaning if 11 is equal, then I'm going to do nothing. If I'm less than 11, then I'm going to go to this branch, which says to increase. Now, all of these little operators, send message, increase, and ID slot 6. Okay, so let me explain how this works. So now I have increase, decrease, and urgent decrease, right? So each of those have to be linked over to this machine here. And that's what these network identifiers do. So each of these guys, you sneaky click it onto this. And then that gives you a link to run programs over here. So now I can use that network call out, this little guy right here, to say, hey, go run the increase program on that other processor. Not only do you need these little network identifiers, you also need to have an advanced network card. These are all pretty cheap components. I haven't really figured out why I might want to skimp on any components in this situation. So a processor is going to be built pretty much to run one or more programs. And in this particular program's case, you can see what resources are allocated to it. So I've allocated all 8 variables to it. I've allocated these 9 slots. So when you see the opcode that says processor slot or ID slot 6, 7, and 8, then that's what that means. So this is 6, 7, and 8. Okay, got it? All right, it's a little tricksy, but that's how it works. All right, now let's look at an easier program. Let's look at increase. You might ask yourself why or how I decided to do increasing and decreasing using a chest. So that's right. Originally, before the reactor blew up the first time, I was using an IMI system to keep and level emitters as my method of control. And it was really complicated and it didn't work very well. And so when the other reactor blew up, I was like, okay, that was freaking hard. Maybe what I should do is look into RFTools a little more and see if I can get it to work with that. And I'm very happy that I did. So yeah, here, we have a storage scanner that's tied to this iron chest. I have a storage scanner that's tied to this copper chest. And I have a bunch of cobblestone in here. And so whatever cobblestone is in this iron chest, that's the current level. 667,000 or 767,000 RF per tick. All right, so when this says no change, this is what we're getting ostensibly. If I go to the reactor room, that's how I know. 767,000. How about that? All right. So the reason that I want that granular level of control for, you know, these 1000s is because the reactor is pretty sensitive and I don't want it to get, you know, crazy. So yeah, we're about to hit, this is very interesting. I just realized this. We're about to hit 768, which is 3 times 256. If I hit the increase button, you're going to see all of the logic that it takes to do this. That's pretty cool. All right, so I have the increase program over here, so that won't happen without us watching. So I can start this by either hitting the button, you know, the upside. Oh, that's wrong. That's interesting. It's the north side, is that right? Yeah, it's the north side. Oh, so I wouldn't have been able to increase it with the button. All right, so now I'm happy I fixed that. All right, so this event basically says if I get a redstone signal on the north side, then I can start this program, which it wouldn't have done. This says if I get a network message called increase, which you already saw me sending, then we'll run this program. So here, similar to before, I get a random number. I create a string to, you know, log a message that says what I'm doing. That string includes what is the current count in the iron chest. So I basically say I am increasing the count, and that's what the count is, and a random number to make sure that I know that it's scrolling. And then we go do that. We go to the copper chest and we fetch a piece of cobblestone, 1 cobblestone, and then we punch it back out into the iron chest. And then I send a network update to update flow. Okay, and then this program's over. All right, so what does that look like? And these are just variants. The decrease and the urgent decrease are just variants of this program, this exact same program. All I'm doing is transferring items the opposite direction. So this goes from the copper chest to the iron chest, whereas the other goes from the iron chest to the copper. Okay, let's increase it. Oh, it didn't work. I didn't save it. Did I save it? Might not have saved it. Live troubleshooting. Okay. I have another whole video on this kind of thing, but north side, save. All right. I think I did originally have this on the upper side. All right. Increasing. 767 R2. 768. That's really odd. Why is that count 1 off? I'll have to troubleshoot that later. All right, so there you see it. Now this bit should be at 3. Uh-oh, my logic is flawed. This should be 0. So I actually increased the reactor by 16,000 when I hit that. Not cool. Okay, let's see if anything happens over here. Is my sensitivity going up? Am I pushing the reactor to 12? Probably not. I think it's got plenty of room to absorb another 16,000 just based on what I saw earlier. So I'm just going to continue my explanation here without getting into why that might be 1 off, because that's... Oh, it's not 1 off. It's saying, hey, all right, yeah, it's not 1 off. It's saying I found 767 in the chest, and I'm increasing it. And then the final after increasing is 768. So that's why. All right, cool. Now I'm going to take this. This is the Flowgate update program. And it's flawed. I am so angry at this. That is really annoying. So now I'm going to come over here and show you the FlowGate program. All right, so this is the FlowGate program. And what's happening here is I get a FlowGate update. I'm going to actually go put this back in there because it is somewhat important to maintain things. Oops. So while I look at this program, I'm going to put that card back in. And so that program will be running. Making sure I don't get a decrease over there. All right. So here I'm going to say run on this message, update flow. Again, these processors all have a network identifier, and these guys all point to that. So you'll notice that their position in the world is the same, 1020 94 1007. Same, right? So here, the program branches. It basically says, I can increase or decrease or severely decrease. And then here, it goes back together to say, okay, I've made that decision. Now, update what we're sending to the reactor. I'm getting really angry at seeing this bright red. I gotta tell you, I'm super angry. All right. I also know that worked earlier, so I don't know what I've done wrong in the meantime. So, all right. So to get this to work in hex, this is the first break, the 256th place. So is the number of cobblestone in this chest greater than 256? If so, we're going to go this way. Right. So that's what these little branching green and red dots mean. I'm going to divide by 256. I'm going to take that number and store it as a variable. I'm then going to multiply the integer out and subtract it. Now this gives me a remainder. So I'm going to store that remainder as variable 2. This one is the 16th place. So that middle digit, to figure out the middle digit, I now have the remainder that is below 256. And I divide that by 16 if it's over 15. And then I get a number there. Now I take all of those variables and I set the digits. So this is setting the 1's place, and then we're setting the 16's place, and then we're setting the 256's place. And then, of course, I create my log message so that I can see what's happening. And then that's this program. So hopefully that is enough knowledge to help you set up your own reactor control. And, good luck with stone punching and whatever end-game madness that you might have. Anyway, I'm Zach Hack. Hopefully you've enjoyed learning a little bit about Stoneblock and Draconic reactors and how to automate the control of that with RFTools. And maybe a little programming in hexadecimal along the way. Redstone decimal, if you will. Anyway, good luck out there. Bye.